So Twilight. I was 8 when I started reading Twilight. My mom was a Twihard, and so when the first movie was available to order on Netflix, we ordered it and decided to have a family movie night. After the first movie, I was hooked. I flew through the books. I was obsessed. I was in it. I was a little Twihard. I wasn't even old enough to go see any of the movies in theaters until Breaking Dawn Part 2. And you can imagine the disappointment of that last scene. Some of us will never recover from that. Imagine having a child and they're double fisting Twilight and the Percy Jackson series. One of these things is not age appropriate. Even my sister, I talked to my sister is 4 years older than me, and she was like, yeah, I was too young when I started reading Twilight. All of that is to say that Twilight has been in my life longer than it hasn't. Of course, when I got to high school, I completely lost my sense of self and pretended I hated Twilight and thought Twilight was stupid because that was a thing until like a year and a half ago. Like a year and a half ago, it was finally like, we were like, it's safe. You know what? It's safe to be a Twilight fan again. Anyway, last year during the pandemic, Midnight Sun was set to release. I was so excited, like I didn't even expect myself to be so excited. I had been suppressing all of the feelings. I almost said feels because that's how old I am in internet. So I decided I was going to reread all the books again before Midnight Sun, and oh my god, my love was reignited and it has burned brighter than 1,000 suns since then. I know not everybody liked Midnight Sun, but I am a dirty simp for Twilight content. Stephenie Meyer could wipe her ass and hand it to me and be like, more Twilight, and I would thank her. Not because I think she's a good person, I actually think she's an awful person, but this series means so much to me, it's uncontrollable. However, in my personal Twilight renaissance, I did not reread Breaking Dawn. I did, however, reread Twilight, New Moon, and Eclipse 4 times in the last 12 months, and Midnight Sun twice. But I never reread Breaking Dawn, and it's just because like the vibe is off in that book. Like there's Twilight, New Moon, and Eclipse, and then to me it's like Breaking Dawn, like the vibe and then a different vibe. I'm so good at explaining things. I know, thank you. I'm the best. So finally, almost a year later, I decided to reread Breaking Dawn for the first time in 10 years. And can I just say that me as a child and me as an adult have way different opinions of this book. So first of all, it was actually lighter than I remember. I think young me had a bit of a flair for the dramatics. I grew up on like drama and romance a lot as a child because I have an older sister and a mom. Like if there was a new romance movie, whether it was like a drama or a rom-com, they were in it and I was along for the ride. First, I want to talk about just an amazing opening part where Bella and Edward are telling Charlie that they are engaged and they're going to get married. And at first, Charlie is like so pissed, like he's like, are you pregnant? And Bella's like, no, I'm not pregnant, don't worry about it. You know what, let's just get into it. I stared incredulously as Charlie doubled over in laughter. His whole body shook with it. I looked at Edward for a translation, but Edward had his lips pressed tightly together, like he was trying to hold back laughter himself. Okay, fine, Charlie choked out. Get married. Another roll of laughter shook through him. But what? I demanded. But you have to tell your mom. I'm not saying one word to Renee, that's all you. He busted into loud guffaws. As a child of divorce, I think that is hilarious and realistic. And then I basically have no thoughts at all until Jacob arrives at the wedding. PSA, I was Team Jacob back in the day. Never in a way where like I thought they would actually get together, but I just liked him. But like as an adult, I do have a new appreciation for Edward. And maybe that's just because of like Midnight Sun and seeing like his perspective. There has always been a tender, soft place in my heart for Jacob Black, and I don't think that's ever gonna change. So did I cry during their wedding? No. Did I sob uncontrollably and literally have to stop when Jacob says, you'd think I'd be used to telling you goodbye by now? What am I supposed to do about that? No, for real, like what is my reaction to that supposed to be? It hurt. Again, no particular thoughts. Head empty till we get to Isle Esme. I think it's funny that like everybody's always like Stephenie Meyers is trying to push her Mormon ideals. Bella's been trying to bone since book 1. Heavily trying to get that premarital dick in book 3. And only agrees to marry Edward so he will turn her, but also so they will have sex. As a girl who doesn't hold marriage at a very high value, like throughout the books, I don't feel like this is pushing Mormon ideals. I feel like Edward got what he wanted and she got what she wanted. I mean, not really, because we know how the rest of the book goes, but as far as the initial deal, everybody was happy. So there's a point where Bella's coming out of the beach house on Isle Esme, and I'll just read it. Let's just read it. He wasn't hard to find. He stood, his back to me, waist deep in the midnight water, staring up at the oval moon. The pallid light of the moon turned his skin perfect white, like the sand. The moon itself made his wet hair black as the ocean. He was motionless, his hands resting palms down against the water. The low waves broke around him as if he were stone. I stared at the smooth lines of his back, his shoulders, his arms, his neck, the flawless shape of him. So you're telling me that she didn't notice his bright white ass in the water? These two virgins have never seen a naked person before, and you're telling me they're not even gonna think about each other's bodies? Like, Bella's more awkward than that. We know this for a fact. So they do it. Obviously, we don't get anything, which is why E.L. James had to write 50 Shades of Grey, because this bitch built up sexual tension, especially in Eclipse, and then was just like, yeah, they did it, whatever. Like, she said, like, romantic shit, but, like, nobody's here for that, okay? So they wake up, and Bella has some bruises, and Edward wants to pretend that nobody ever in the history of sex ever got a little hurt. Like, it's so out of the ordinary to feel a little sore the next day. Feel a little stiff. But, like, Edward didn't Google anything. We know he talked to Carlisle and Emmett and Jasper. The epitome of knowledge, apparently. I'm sorry, you're over 100 years old, and sex is a complete mystery to you? You don't constantly hear your siblings' dirty thoughts. We know how Emmett and Rosalie are, okay? You tell us. During this moment, Bella is like, I'm fine, and Edward keeps arguing with her. She literally says, don't ruin this for me. In my opinion, this is one of the most abusive things Edward does in the books, is like gaslighting her. Like, she's saying, I had a good time, and he was like, no you didn't, I hurt you. Don't ruin her first time, bro. Don't ruin your first time, bro. Then he literally, quote, throws his arms over his face and becomes completely still. The fucking drama of Edward Cullen, I can't. Usually I can appreciate it to a certain extent, but in this moment... In chapter 7, we get the big reveal. And in all of the Twilight universe, this is one of 2 times periods are mentioned. All of the complications that could have on this specific relationship, and this is the first time we're hearing about it. Here's where I get into the bulk of this video. As a child, I was Team Bella and Team Rosalie. I was like, let them live, women supporting women, like, let her have the baby. And, like, obviously Bella should be allowed to do whatever she wants with her body, but like, as an adult, I'm pro-vampire abortion. They should have just gone home and let Carlisle take care of it. I'll get into how much I dislike the ending of this series in a sec, but for now, I'm Team Edward and Jacob on this one. They should have just gotten rid of it. Everyone in the comments is probably like, but what about Renesmee? Here's my most unpopular Twilight opinion. I don't care for Renesmee. Not like I don't like her. I just don't care for her. As a plot, as a character, I'm not into it. I don't like it. Mostly because it's just not where the story should have gone, in my opinion. I understand. The writer of the story wrote this. This is where she wanted it to go. But I'm allowed to criticize that, and I'm allowed to not like it. I didn't need Edward and Bella to have a kid to complete this whole story. That was not something that I wanted as a child or as an adult. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but the whole baby plot just feels off to me. And not just because Jacob imprints on Renesmee. Bella being a martyr, Bella sacrificing herself for somebody she loves. It's old news. It's in every damn book. But Bella all of a sudden being a gung-ho mother, I just don't like it. And it's not how I don't like the ending of Merlin. I don't like the ending of Merlin because it makes me sad. Like, I get it. That was the necessary ending for that story, for that show. It's not the same as I don't like the ending of Supernatural, which to me was super disrespectful to all of their fans. Supernatural can go fuck itself. I just don't like it as an ending for this series. I don't like that Jacob imprints on Renesmee. Jacob is like one of my favorite characters in this series, and he could have imprinted on literally anybody else, and I would have been totally fine with it. But Renesmee? Was this really like our only option? When she was like, what am I gonna do for Breaking Dawn? What is the ending to this story gonna be? That was all you could think of. That was the most creative you could get, and I'll give you that. It's creative in a fucking weird, crazy way. At one point towards the end, like right before they're heading out to the field for the battle, Edward calls him son? Ew? You know, because Jacob will marry his daughter in the next 7 years, because she grows fast? Like, yeah, I like the way Jacob and Bella get to be friends. I like when him and Edward get along. I like the way the Pack and the Cullens get along. But I don't accept Renesmee as my Jacob's happy ending. I don't think Bella needs a baby. Bella's happy ending should have been having sex with Edward, becoming a vampire, and having sex with Edward again, because that is her most consistent desire throughout the entire series. I literally like most things about Breaking Dawn. I like everybody being happy. I like everybody being friends. But fuck the baby. I don't care about the baby. Why do they need to have a baby? So anyway, to kind of move out of that and to Jacob's chapters, the baby arc is so crazy that the most crazy conversation in the entire series happens because of it, where Edward basically says, you can have sex with Bella, you can get her pregnant, you can have children with Bella, you can have a whole litter of puppies, she can have as many puppies as she wants. I'll fucking share her with you. Just don't let her go through with this. Convince her not to go through with this. I'm sorry, what? Jacob jokes about providing his stud services, and Edward doesn't laugh, but I think it's hilarious. This is also when Edward says, you have to make her see reason, Jacob. She won't listen to me anymore. Rosalie's always there, feeding her insanity, encouraging her, protecting her. No, protecting it. Bella's life means nothing to her. I'm sorry, Stephenie Meyers changes Jacob's character to make him more of an asshole in Eclipse because she didn't like how much everybody liked him after New Moon, but she just glosses over how much Rosalie fucking sucks in this book. At the end, Bella's fucking dead upstairs with Edward trying to work on her. We know she can hear it, and Jacob comes downstairs to find her totally calm with her little baby. Her little demon baby. Who gives a fuck if Bella's dead? I don't know if she's coming back or not, but I got my demon baby, so who gives a fuck, right? Okay, so back to Jacob's chapters, because Jacob. The Pack is kind of hot and cold in this book, because when Bella originally returns home, and we first get word that Bella is home, everybody assumes she's a vampire, and the Pack is like, we're not going to attack them, there's no reason to go after her, she chose to be a vampire, there's no reason to break the treaty. And then, when it's like, oh, she's also pregnant, everybody's like, fuck Bella, time to kill Bella. And Stephenie Meyer tries to, like, redeem them by making it like, the Pack had no choice. Sam wouldn't do this if he felt like there was any other options. What confuses me, too, is it's like, is there not enough of a relationship with the Cullens now where they, like, can trust that they wouldn't do anything to bring anybody harm? I figured, like, after Eclipse and everybody fighting together, there would be a different rapport there, and there's just isn't. I want to talk about the meeting in the forest, which I have named Two Bros Naked in the Forest, 5 feet apart, because they're not gay. It's kind of what the vibe felt like, and I think it's funny, so moving on. This is the meeting where Sam sends Quill and Jared to talk to Jacob about sending Leah and Seth back. Sue asked me to tell you, no, to beg you to come home. She's brokenhearted, Seth. All alone. I don't know how you and Leah could do this to her. Abandon her this way. when your dad has just barely died. Seth whimpered. Ease up, Jared, I warned. Just letting you know how it is. Sam told me to beg. He told me to literally get down on my knees if I have to. He wants you home, Lily, where you belong. I'm sorry, I just hate that Jared tries to guilt trip Seth. He's a 14-year-old. Like, what is wrong with you to, like, use his mom and dad that way? Like, if Sue needs to get in touch with him, I am 100% sure she could figure out a way to do that. As Jacob mentions, Sue is one of the toughest bitches on the reservation. If she needed to get in contact with her children, I am 100% sure she would find a way to do that. And doing that to Leah is just cruel. Leah's life is kind of, like, incredibly horrible. Is that the right word? I don't think that's the right word. But if I said, like, her life sucks, that doesn't feel like enough. Seriously, if Leah had her own book, it would be more depressing than New Moon. In this book, though, she kind of gets to break out of it because Jake is now an alpha and has his own pack. I am not talking about the Omegaverse, so all of you can crawl back into your hidey holes for now. So splitting from Sam's pack into Jake's pack kind of gives her room to grow. Because really, before this, she's mostly portrayed as, like, the bitter ex-girlfriend of Sam Yulee, and the pack kind of treats her weird, and she doesn't really fit in, and, like, she's the fastest runner. Like, that's really all we get about her. And, like, they acknowledge that it must be, like, a heartbreaking situation. And I really like this understanding that happens between Jake and Leah. They're having this conversation where Leah basically asks, after all of this is over, if she can stay in Jake's pack. Because obviously the plan is to send Leah and Seth home. And Jake's like, I don't really think you're going to want to be in my head after all this goes down. Like, it's not going to be a happy place. And then she says something along the lines of, like, Bella is your Sam. Like, the person you are in love with is in love with somebody else, and you can't have them. Like, she understands his pain, and she basically says that his grief will be easier to bear than her own. Which, if that doesn't say something about how she's been feeling, I don't know what does. And then this kind of leads to probably what is the most we get to learn about her in this series, which is a huge mistake on Stephenie Meyer's part. I want to read this part before I talk about it because it's so heartbreaking.
And then she was suddenly the pain-hardened Leah from before. I'm talking about being a genetic dead end, Jacob. The vicious edge to her words left me floundering. I hadn't expected to have my anger trumped. I don't understand. You would if you weren't just like the rest of them. If my female stuff, she thought, the words with a hard, sarcastic tone, didn't send you running for cover just like any stupid male. So you could actually pay attention to what it all means. Yeah, so none of us like to think about that stuff with her. Who would? Of course I remembered Leah's panic that first month after she joined the pack. And I remembered cringing away from it just like everyone else. Because she couldn't be pregnant. Not unless there was some really freaky religious immaculate crap going on. She hadn't been with anyone since Sam. And then, when the weeks dragged on and nothing turned into more nothing, she realized that her body wasn't following the normal patterns anymore. The horror. What was she now? Had her body changed because she'd become a werewolf? Or had she become a werewolf because her body was wrong? The only female werewolf in the history of forever. Was that because she wasn't as female as she should be? None of us had wanted to deal with that breakdown. Obviously, it wasn't like we could empathize. You know why Sam thinks we imprint, she thought, calmer now. Sure, carry on the line. Right, to make a bunch of new little werewolves, survival of the species, genetic override. You're drawn to the person who gives you the best chance to pass on the wolf gene. I waited for her to tell me where she was going with this. If I was any good for that, Sam would have been drawn to me. Her pain was enough that I broke stride under it. But I'm not. There's something wrong with me. I don't have the ability to pass on the gene, apparently, despite my stellar bloodlines. So I become a freak. The girly wolf. Good for nothing else. I'm a genetic dead end, and we both know it. We do not, I argued with her. That's just Sam's theory. Imprinting happens, but we don't know why. Billy thinks it's something else. I know. He thinks you're imprinting to make stronger wolves, because you and Sam are such humongous monsters. Bigger than our fathers. But either way, I'm still not a candidate. I'm menopausal. I'm 20 years old, and I'm menopausal. Ugh, I so did not want to have this conversation. You don't know that, Leah. It's probably just the whole frozen in time thing. When you quit your wolf and start getting older again, I'm sure things will, pick right back up. I might think that, except for no one's imprinting on me. Notwithstanding my impressive pedigree. You know, she added thoughtfully, if you weren't around, Seth would probably have the best claim to being alpha through his bloodlines. Of course, no one would ever consider me.
Leah isn't only having a crisis of being in love with Sam, she's also having a crisis of if she will or can imprint. But it also feels like she's kind of having a gender crisis because she's the only female wolf and her body isn't functioning regularly. Which, being menopausal isn't just, I don't have my period anymore. Like, there's a lot of other stuff that goes into that, so I would be curious to see if any of the other stuff is happening to her. Again, I honestly just wish Stephenie Meyer would give Leah her own spin-off. Oh, and another thing, Harry's heart attack was triggered by Leah transforming. We learned this from the Illustrated Guide. I personally haven't read it yet, but I'm a Twilight fan, so it's my business to know. I want to read it though because from what I know of it, it sounds like Stephenie Meyer's version of J.K. Rowling tweeting things about her characters after the fact. Like just giving us random facts she totally could have put in the series but decided not to. It's almost like she decided a lot of the things after. Another thing about Leah, who would want to be the only female in the mind of roughly 10 guys from 14 to 21? Also, they're all guys you grew up with, or it's your brother, or it's your ex-boyfriend. Again, nightmare fuel, the whole idea of that. And I don't know, I think it's just a pet peeve, but it really bugs me with whether it's a book or a TV or a movie where they give a character a really rich backstory, but then just kind of like gloss over it and make them a side character. Like, you can't give somebody all this emotional baggage and then just be like, not that we're ever going to focus on you or anything, but we have to give you something. Leah just does deserve better, and she has this, like, cute, I don't want to say cute because that sounds condescending. I don't want to sound condescending. She, like, has this plan for herself where she's going to quit her wolf, and she's going to move, and she's going to go to community college and take some classes and get a job and start doing yoga and meditation to work on her anger issues, and I just really hope she got to do that. Again, I know, fictional characters, but you can't make them so lifelike and then expect me to not care. Also in this conversation, Leah briefly empathizes with Rosalie on the whole baby thing, which to me screams a little bit like Stephenie Meyer's continuing to try to, like, justify Rose's actions. But we're gonna let it go, because we love and support Leah on this channel, and all of her feelings are valid. Which that, in combination with Edward being able to hear the baby's thoughts and Edward and Bella having this, like, cute, aw, baby moment, sends Jacob into yet another heartbreaking scene where Jacob drives to Seattle and goes to, like, the mall and fair, I think, and looks into the eyes of every girl and tries to imprint because he doesn't want to be in pain anymore. And I really wish that's where he would have randomly found a girl, because I want that for him. I want him to be happy. But no, like less than 24 hours later, he imprints on Bella's baby. And I think that's all I really have to say about the book. I like the last half of the book, I guess. I liked Bella's transformation and getting to see what it's like to be a newborn, like, firsthand from her. As I've said before, I like the Cullens and the pack becoming more tight and learning how to work together. I like meeting the new vampires from all over the world. I think that's really cool, and we get to kind of explore their powers. But I'm still just not sold on the whole Renesmee plotline. Like, the most Mormon thing Stephenie Meyers does is having Bella get married and have a baby before she turns 19. So I don't think I can end this video talking about Leah and how I wish Leah would have her own spin-off without talking about what I just found out will happen in the next book. I was told, I heard the rumor, that the next Twilight book, Stephenie Meyer said wanted to focus on Jacob and Renesmee in high school. And I wasn't super excited about that because yay, more Jacob, but Renesmee. But I'm so excited. I just found out about this like seconds ago. On her official website, Stephenie Meyer explained that when she gets back to Twilight, the story will, quote, revolve around the same characters, end quote, but now with Renesmee and Leah Clearwater as narrators. It's so bittersweet, but it's just, there's just Leah being involved is just so much more sweetness than I expected. This is my genuine reaction to this because I just found this out. Meyer also added it will be set 5 or 10 or 15 years after the end of Breaking Dawn, though that depends on when she finally gets to write the book. So the time setting and just like the characters can change once she starts writing. So like, right now she's planning on it being about Renesmee and Leah, and I hope that doesn't change. I hope it's about Renesmee and Leah, because that would just be awesome. I I want more of Leah's story. Also, I just feel like the next book could be a really great way for Stephenie Meyer to right some of her wrongs. And she did Leah a bit dirty, and I am so excited at the possibility that this could include Leah. I thought it was just going to be about Jacob and Renesmee. I was told it would be about Jacob and Renesmee in high school, and apparently I'm bad at Twilight New, so all the complaining I just did was for something, but not for what I thought it would be. So since reading Breaking Dawn and realizing how weird it is, I have really wanted to go back into some of the things I liked when I was younger to see how weird they actually are. Because as a kid, I thought this was all fine. Like, I didn't have any qualms. And as an adult, I have qualm. I have many a qualm. So I was kind of already doing like a childhood rewatch series on this channel that didn't really develop, but I think I have some great ideas for it. And if there is anything weird from your childhood, or something you didn't think was weird as a kid, but now as an adult you're like, what was I thinking? Please tell me in the comments. I would love to hear any suggestions, or react to anything, because maybe your weird thing wasn't my weird thing, and now I get to react to your weird thing. Also, I think you should like and subscribe purely because this is my 3rd day of recording. On day 1, about 15 minutes into recording, I got hit with vertigo that ended up lasting for 5 hours. 5 hours as the room spinning while I either laid flat on the ground or tried to crawl around my apartment to find Zofran and Sudafed. And trying not to vomit while wearing a full face of makeup and fake eyelashes. That's right, I have put on fake eyelashes 3 times for this video. Anyway, I'm Clever Hans, and I guess that's it.